No tiene ni idea. Ahora se puede más ahí. Igual.
¿Aquí se sienta Juliana? No. Y no sé si aquí se sienta alguien o no. ¿O esto lo retiramos? No, yo tampoco, yo tampoco. Yo tampoco, no se sabe. No. Sí. Ay, ¿dónde están? Yo me siento aquí, no sé. Ay. Bueno, pero un poco lejos. Sí, sí, ya lo sé, ya lo tengo aquí, ya lo tengo. Ya está aquí. Muy bien, sí, está claro. ¿Se oye? Sí. Pues buenos días.
Good morning. Good morning. I hope you can hear the translation. Yes. Good morning. Yes, can you hear us? Good. You can be heard, yes, perfectly well. Yes, I hope you can hear the translation. I just said good morning and welcome. And I would like to thank all of you for being here this morning, because these projects that we're working on, which are so interesting, during this event, we're going to talk about them. And it's very important that they reach our citizens, because otherwise they won't be as important as we want them to be. So it is very, very interesting that you're with us here today, so that you get to know all about this project. And there's another element which I feel is very important at the same time. We are working with people from other countries like Portugal and Croatia. Now, why is it so important, or what do I mean by saying it is important? The fact that we are coordinating with other countries, as I say, we are European citizens, and this is a very important element. But at this point in time, I think it is very important that we do that the European Union is not only based on legislation, etc., but has to do with our citizens, with people. So I think it should prove to be very interesting. I think you know something about this project, as you know. It is to create awareness with regard to online violence and in the digital field, with taking into consideration women and children. We want to analyze and debate on this because we know it's on an upward trend. There are more chats, there's more greater digital world, but that I don't understand too much about, but the young people do. And we see that there's violence against women, abuse against women. This is a project, as I say. It's about 2 years now that we've been working on this project, and it's ongoing for 36 months, and it is funded with a considerable allocation of funds from Europe, as I say, and it's called DAPHNE, and it has to do with preventing violence. So we have this project, as I say, which we were going to talk about during this morning. And on my right, I have two people. Well, sorry, on my right and left, I have two women that hold very important positions, and we have their help and their support. So I'd like to introduce them. Their CVs, as I say, are very prestigious. And I'd just like to sum this up, because you'll find it on the papers later. María del Mar Vicente Jiménez is the first person I would like to introduce. And she is the Deputy Director in the DG of Women and Family and Social Affairs and Children from the actual borough of Madrid, or community of Madrid, as we call it. She works in the department, and her goal is to prevent violence against women and to help the victims that have suffered abuse or violence. So she's very aware of this subject. As I say, she is an expert, I would say, in this field. And then on my right, I have Malenka Morovic, who is the representative of the, as I say, the Ombudsman for Equality in Gender from Croatia. So as I say, prevention of violence is her main item. She's promoting this. And as I say, and this in the Ombudsman office, this was set up in the year 2003. And she's the head of the Ombudsman's office. And there are 3 different projects that she's been involved in. European projects where we talk about defending women in situations of violence. She participates actively in this project. And we believe that she's very prestigious and very professional in this field because she knows about this problem and has participated in the goal that has been set out to look for the different elements that can facilitate the struggle against this violence that we're referring to. And we believe her participation here today will be very important for all. And also, I would like to sincerely thank Don Andrés Jiménez Rodríguez, who comes from the Department of Justice, and Ana Maria Bejera Puente, who comes from the same department, who's an expert in this field, and is Hidalgo, who, as I say, is in the Ministry of Culture in a program under the European Union, and she will tell us about this later on. And then we would like to thank Catalina Alves for being here today, representative of Development and Wellbeing Institute here in Spain, from the POWER project, which has been funded by the European Union for the empowerment of the associations of human rights and to put a stop to this abuse and violence. We believe that these people have played a very important role in supporting our project here today. They are people with background experience in this field, and they have decided to come here today, and we're most grateful to them for their presence. Now, I have nothing else to add. I think what is important now is, as I say, is these 2 ladies should take the floor now. I'd like to give the floor now to María del Mar de Vicente Jiménez. I wasn't sure it would be Vicente Jiménez or Jiménez Vicente, but it's Vicente Jiménez is her surname. Okay, I'd like to give you the floor now. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your kind words. And first of all, I would like to thank the LEM, the European Lobby of Women in Spain. And I would like to, as I say, congratulate you for the work and how you have advanced in the project, we say. And in Madrid, we're here to support this initiative, and particularly with regard to cyber violence. And we want to advocate for a safer digital environment for women and children, particularly women and girls, I should say. Women and girls suffer trauma from cyber abuse, consent to intimate content, pornography that hasn't been requested, and even death. And as I say, maltreatment of women and girls in digital field. But unfortunately, there's a new, they found refuge in internet. And because of the digital environment, how immediate it is. The data that we have are of great concern. 25% of women between 16 and 25 years of age have an inappropriate insinuation through social networks. Those between 15 and 29 years have suffered digital sexual abuse. 30% of women declare that they have had persistent abuse. And as I say, the majority of them highlight their partners of having done this. This is a phenomenon that really worries the DG of women in the borough of Madrid. The borough of Madrid has full comprehensive attention for this subject. It's the biggest it's the biggest center for this. There's centers for young people, there's centers for women who are disabled, intellectual disablement, and those who have been suffered. We have 24 positions for, as I say, these women and their children. We have 2 residential centers for victims of sexual abuse. Another center also for those who have actually suffered physically. And we have, as I say, emergency places for these people. And we have a new center this year, which has been a pioneer in this area for full comprehensive attention to women who want to abandon prostitution without them having to have suffered any type of sexual abuse. But we know, apart from these resources that we have, but we know that we need specific responses to cyber violence. So we have set up in Madrid different initiatives. In 2024, they organized training for the professionals that look after our citizens. And in LEM, the European Lobby for Women, as I say, and those who attend the victims, as I say, have the necessary training for looking after these women and girls that have suffered this type of abuse. This month as well, we're going to run a campaign to raise awareness among young people when they participate in digital pornography, and there will be a rapid economic compensation there. And we see, yes, that there can be definite offenses here. And in internet, as I say, one can lose control, and the content can be harmful. So I hope this event today will be enriching. And I would like to thank the LEM for the excellent work that they are doing and for organizing this space of collaboration and shared learning. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much. I'd like to give the floor now to Ladenka Morovic. Sorry, I couldn't pronounce your name very well. Morovic, right.
Dear colleagues, project partners, representatives, dear friends, it's my pleasure to extend the greetings of the Ombudsperson for Gender Equality of the Republic of Croatia, as well as my personal greetings and best wishes. When we talk about online violence against women, we will sometimes call it cybernetic, online, or digital violence. But regardless of these names, we must always remember to call it what is, and that is gender-based violence. In past years, we have witnessed a great increase in the use of internet and social media, but there is an even greater increase in public incitement of violence and hatred based on sex and gender. This is not my or anybody else's gut feeling. Any research institution that tries to find answers in data on these subject came to the same conclusions. A perpetrator of violence, online or not, can fear with victim fighting back and the community of this victim sanctioning the perpetrator. But women are seen as weak, and the internet is seen as a veil that will hide the perpetrator so well that they can get away with almost anything. The reasons for deviant behavior on the internet are in their core not complex or hard to understand. The quick spread of hate speech in digital world is inflated by an assumed enlightenment and feeling of impunity. This last word, impunity, is a big part of why we are here. It means the absence of punishment. And it is very relevant because laws develop slower than technology does. This is true for Croatia, for Spanish and Portugal, and indeed for all of Europe. We do trust lawmakers and decision makers that they will step up in this demanding race against time and tech companies. The Ombudsperson has monitored and coordinated great efforts that will be present today. From conducting research on a very difficult subject, through education programs for teachers, social workers, and police officers, to advocating for national laws so they may recognize and sanction this peril and making online service providers to take greater responsibility. The Ombudsperson and I personally thank you for all your work. As for all of you gathered here, I'm sure you are eager to find out more about all that I have just mentioned. So without further ado, I will hand the floor over to our respected and recognized keynote speakers. And thank you all. Thank you very much.
Perdón, muchas gracias. Sí,
Well, thank you very much. If any of you would like to ask a question, now's the time to do so. Yes, please put on your microphones. Thank you. Yes, did you want to say something with the microphone? Always use a microphone to facilitate the translation. Okay, so let's go on to the next part. Thank you very much. We'll begin with one of the presentations now.
Buenos días. Mi nombre es Teresa Nevado, soy la secretaria general del en España y la project manager del proyecto.
I am the project manager of the project. I'm here at the panel because I have the honor to introduce to you our most important speaker, Serangez, who is doctor in law, and she has a degree in philosophy, and she teaches at the law philosophy at Granada University. She is a well-known woman in the feminist sphere, and her research focuses on feminist theory and equality policies. At the moment, she's the main researcher in a project about rights of women in digital societies, which tackles the impact of social networks on women and the influence of digital pornography. On top of this, we have a very good relationship with her because she has published very many books and very many scientific articles, but she was most specifically the author of a project subsidized by the government, Spanish government, which is which is a report on romantic relationships in commerce in the digital society and the consequences of digital society in that. We believe that she is an expert in this area, and this is why we have invited her as main speaker here. I'll be here nearby in case she needs something, but she has the floor. Thank you very much, Teresa, and thank you very much to all of you who are present. I would like to thank the Autonomous Region of Madrid, and I would like to also thank the Ombudsman, representative of Croatia, the representatives of Portugal, Spain, and the delegation of the government for financing this small project. And also I would like to thank the Complutense University of Madrid for giving us this venue to hold this seminar. We're going to tackle an important subject, cyber male chauvinism in social networks. And this is a project that has been funded by the Spanish Society as a project called the sexual toll, if you like, in order to, and within this framework, we've analyzed the opinion of romantic relationship expressed in a survey carried out. And we asked both adolescents and young people, male and female, and we asked them about their opinion of affective romantic relationships. And we have actually seen that there is an increasing gap in terms of romantic expectations between boys and girls. There are increasing number of opinions of young people who are angry because there is a lack of relationship and romantic and sexual relationships with women, and they have a kind of resentment in relation to that, and I will focus on this later on in my presentation. And women, there's a growing number of them who say that believe they don't need to have romantic and sexual relationships with boys and men, and they prefer to focus on their own private project. And this has given rise to cyber violence events that are increasingly reported. In the project I run, the questionnaire asked 355 people, 298 women and 47 men, because males were less prone to answer and to take part about this kind of studies about cyber violence. And but there was a complementary element that allow us to analyze very many reports by male coming from Instagram, Reddit, and other social networks, social media, and also co-digital media. We carried out also a bibliographical research focusing on philosophy, sociology, and other knowledge areas in order to try and understand why this the male and female are growing apart and why they find it difficult to come together and difficult to agree on what they believe it is a romantic relationship. Some of the things I'm going to tackle is edadism, the idea that women sort of at one point expire, so to say, they are as women, and hypergamia, the idea that women only want to relate to 20%, so 80%, so with male who have a high level of success and status, and as if women all wanted to have access just to a very low percentage of women, and most men are actually confined to involuntary celibate. And this is why there is a growing number of male chauvinism in internet. There is another thing that people seem to hate: single mothers, mothers that are separated, divorced, or just single, and this happens on the in the social media. And also there's a growing number of experiences lived by female which suffer from grooming in a way in TikTok and other social media. And they believe that male think that in the face of this kind of images on the social media, very sexualized, it seems that males actually click like very often. But at the same time, they believe that the reason why women have been turned into a sexual object is the fault of women themselves, because they expose themselves like that. Beauty is another important question that I've found that has been highly criticized on the internet. The fact that one has to be very beautiful, and girls think that they have to sort of show themselves on the social media very beautiful, and they use filters and other tools to show themselves like that. And women also say that ghosting and casual sex is another problem, because many girls say that they are ignored after having sort of a digital date, and especially through Instagram, which is the main way to get in contact with boys or girls. They think that they are abandoned once they have had a first contact, and they disappear. Boys disappear. Ghosting is therefore a problem, and this reinforces the culture of the disposable culture. You use something and you dispose of it, and that's how girls feel in a large number. Let's just start with a brief presentation about digital relationships in the consumerism society. We could refer to the liquid society, refer to the socialist Bauman, who already said that how we live in a culture about that, the disposable culture, where romantic relations are subject to the same pattern of other consumer objects like computers, TV sets, etc. You use them and then you get fed up with them, or you get rid of them and get a new thing. Within the romantic relationships, we found this in the Spanish literature, the Don Juan culture, a male who uses women as if he was using an object, a product. Don Juan becomes therefore a representation, an archetype of the 21st man that romantic male figure who uses very many women have very poly relationships, and they actually use these women up until they are 30, because after 30, women are supposed not to be of any beauty or any attractiveness anymore, and male tend to actually have this kind of Don John attitude, and because they can carry on with this kind of attitude after 30, while female cannot, because they kind of have expired, as yogurt expires, no? And this is what we found, this kind of ideology or attitude. According to this mercantilist ideology of love, there is a programmed obsolescence of romantic relationships. There are males who say that they prefer to have Tinder culture because like this, they don't have to speak a lot with women because they're just interested in sex, rapid sex. What they want is to get to one of these websites, request, if you like, for a sexual relationship without not much talking, or because talking to a female is considered to be something that is boring, and this is part of the programmed obsolescence culture that we found. In this kind of merchandising or mercantilizing ideology, we found something called prime, which means that women, they are prime moment is around 18, 19 up until 23, but the female prime happens at 30 something. This is the moment where they have the greatest level of success with women or sexually. And we see therefore that digital culture, according to studies like Duportel study, related to Tinder, that shows that this is not just a subjective idea that male who are part of this misogynistic internet groups, but on the contrary, all the Tinder algorithm tends to reproduce those preferences shown by most people, be them male or female. The algorithm considers that the female prime is set at 23, around 23, which is the moment of the greatest level of beauty. While for male, this prime moment is considered to be later, especially after he has finished his high-level university studies and he's a professional whose profession involves power, status, money. So for young women, beautiful young women, prefer to match with older male with a high status. This is according to the algorithm, and this is supposedly the sociological preferences shown by those people who use these applications. Tinder is the application that is most highly used worldwide. So millions of users, male and female, show this kind of dispersion. And this theory of a wall, the fact that women expire with age, is actually a fact, a sociological fact. Some of the comments that I found in relation to the consumerist society or society of consumerism, many women consider that social media and social and media date application think that it's a kind of window show, showroom. If they are, this is what they say, because they say that they have to show always at their best, very beautiful to be considered, as if they were in a showcase, as a showcase butcher, some of them, they've actually said. And they refer to Tinder like that onto other social media like Instagram. That's how females feel. And also they say that about TikTok. In terms of the impact of this phenomenon, this kind of digital phenomenon makes women into things and reinforces male chauvinism, because they reinforces appearance, the way you look. So Bauman says in this context that in this consumerism society, the object of consumption, the product are women and the consumer are male. So there is a difference in terms of sex, in terms of how males and females are impacted by this society. And this is what actually gives rise to distancing between male and female, men who don't find sex-effective relations and females who think that don't want to have male relationship anymore, and they prefer to focus on other things. This is why there is a digital asymmetric society. In terms of age discrimination, in other words, that female expire when they are 35, by 35, and the fact that on the contrary, male can carry on for longer as an attractive person or element. Well, this is related to, in the case of female, to beauty, and in the case of male, to career and money. Beauty freedom in the 50s already said that this was a conservative sort of rhetoric in the US, which is very much similar to the one that we find in the media today. In those days, girls would say that it was not a good idea to prioritize profession and to become, to have a boyfriend and get married very quickly at 18 or 20, to have children. And this was the promotion of the housewife as an idealistic, an ideal for women. So in social media, we find now that there is a trans wife movement. The trans wife movement is related to the promotion of a housewife as an ideal for women, similar to that in the 50s. And the rhetoric is the same one. Women, be careful, because from 25 onwards, your attractiveness will be going down. And if you get to 30, you will be cats, and one will be your destiny. That's what we say in Spain. Single women are reported to have anxiety in the 50s. And in those days, psychiatrists already said that single women actually reported higher rates of happiness and higher life expectation. So single women are quite happy, according to psychology reports, much more than those who live in marriage or in a relationship. And this could lead to us to think that this question of age is an element to actually make women feel afraid and in turn reinforce patriarchal ideas so that they can focus on, think that the only way out is being a housewife. Consciously or unconsciously, I think that this ideology is used for that, especially when it's used on the internet. There is also a distortion about fertility. Fertility and the biological clock is a factor that women is a factor that women have to face, because it's supposed to affect only male and not female, not male. We don't know whether or not male can have children, or how convenient it is for older men to have children, or what genetic problems they can have when they want to have children when they're 50 or 60s, because this also has genetic consequences. But on the internet, we find a speech, rhetoric that is actually biased, that focuses on the fact that only women have a biological clock to attend, and they need to have children quickly, because as if male were not impacted by that biological clock. And 50% of infertility is due to actually male factors, according to the studies carried out. Males say after 30, a woman expires, they are no longer, the best moment has gone by, and they have to accept whatever comes along. By the age of 25, as when a girl gets a peak. At 35, no one wants that. after 30, a woman only they are not, they cannot really feel the purpose of a serious relationship because they're no longer attractive. Their prime has gone by. And maybe because the good time they had, they spent them sleeping around, and now they want to settle by 30, but it's too late for them. This kind of narrative perpetuates a double standard because men are not actually don't have to face this expiry date. And women have to put up with this kind of pressure, and this is why they prefer to focus on their own personal autonomy. And they say, okay, I haven't found a partner by 30 because men only focus on women as a body rather than a person. Then if they don't value me as a person, and then I prefer to focus on my own autonomy, on my own life project. This is the mentality that female have now. And but men say, oh, you will be drinking Prozac, eating Prozac and drinking wine and having a lot of cats.
Yeah. Bueno, luego encontramos
And then there's another issue as well. Complementary parts amongst the genders. We talk about feminine and masculine energy. I don't know if you've heard of this before. It's an ideology that, well, goes back to the 50s. And we have traditional roles being promoted. Men should represent the role of a provider, and women should be what we call the carer of the traditional wife. And to have children, to work outside the home and to stay inside. And virginity, of course, is taken into consideration here. There's comments from young people saying women are made to care for everybody in their homes. All the problems came when votes were given to women. These are comments that we hear over and over again in social networks. A man wants a woman who knows how to cook, to bring up children, not a feminist with a career or a profession. Women should be feminine. They shouldn't try to imitate the male. The woman has to be a woman. The men have to be men. And we see these comments over and over again appearing on internet. On the other hand, the domineering ideology is the body count and, of course, the sexual part. The concept of body count, it depends on how many sexual partners a woman has. That's to shame women for their sexual autonomy, but men don't have to take this on board. The double sexual morale is what we were saying. That's due to men and women should behave differently in line with their sexuality, in the field of their sexuality. Women should only have one partner, as we know, and practice monogamy. But men, as I can have free sexual relations with as many women as possible. That's the best situation. In the 21st century, we see the language that has been used, the symmetry that we have between the two genders. Simone de Beauvoir said, yes, that women fall, if you like. If men make love to her, the men, as I say, is the subject, predicate, and object here. So this is the double sexual morale, where it's a service rendered by women to men, and what in compensation she is maintained or given gifts. The expression of I'm going to fuck you in Spanish means sexual use, and it's a form of dominating women. When we talk about sexuality, we use military terms, as Simone de Beauvoir said, as victory, conquest, or as I say, the unloading of artillery. But in social networks, we see semen is something that, as I say, dirties a woman for life, because she has been the receiver, and those that have been receptors of a lot of semen is sort of as if they had been stained for life. But with men, on the other hand, we see this phenomenon in social network. The chauvinists talk about very beautiful women, but they have been crucified, as I say, and they have them on their forums. In internet, what is most important is to go to bed with that woman. It's a way of showing their status in the light of other males, but there's hypocrisy there. And if they manage to go to bed with that person, well, then they say, well, if I have conquered, well, I've humiliated her and she's stained for life. So this scorn of men towards women, sexualized women, they're the ones, thanks to prostitution, pornography, and social media. We see all of this in cyber violence. And to justify this, it's like nature has made men predators and women are resigned to this. In other words, nature makes us be resigned to the men as predators. So this we have to put up with this aggressive behavior and lack of respect. Men talk about the lack of intelligence in women because they haven't been able to find a partner to fulfill their sexual desires when they feel that they are good people. And they say these women are so silly if they don't always give their consent when I propose something. They're bad, they're silly, and that's the culture we're coming up against today. So we defend the culture of the alpha male in internet. The idea is that women will resign to being submitted to strong men. And we see the terrific cruelty that women suffer, hybristophilia, which is what we find in this group, which is the romanticizing of women with regard to men, that women like this kind of aggressive behavior. A woman with lots of partners is just, she could be absolutely anything off the street, as I say. If she has a high body count, I don't want her I just want her for one night. And they highlight items like there's a metaphor with the master key, a key that opens a whole lot of doors. Well, so as I say, this is, of course, is the disparity that exists between men and women in the field of sexuality. We live this hypocrisy, and then they defend virginity in women, or the least amount of sexual partners, the better for them to really want to be that woman. Aristophilia, the women who romanticize about what we call dangerous males. Women prefer the bad guys than the good guys, which are them, of course. It's always the good guy who is talking. And of course, this gives us toxic masculinity. And this, as I say, goes back to the 50s and the 80s as well, where the period of rational ideologies and internet. And we have the idea come up as well, the masochist element of women, because they desire to be abused. Like what Tony Grant said, it said that women at the end of the day desire this violence. And also the masochism in women as something inherent to, so that men lose control. And this is something that's been sold to women, but what women want and become happy is through passivity, and to be surprised by the domineering macho alpha or strong macho. Phenomenons as well in internet that we see, pathologies, the fact that there are women that describe men in prison that have raped women. Well, there's these women that then they have what we call Christophilia, which is of course sexual attraction for these men, because they say this is the real feminine nature, they say. Simone de Beauvoir and other feminists, German Green, who tried to explain the sociological explanation behind why some women show desire towards violent, aggressive males. There's a clear trend in society there. And we see Wattpad, which is something which is used in literature in the Z generation. So we see in romantic novels in the 21st century are related, or they are, well, include sports car drivers, boxers, etc., and they are willing to fight to conquest women, to fight other males. This is the idea of the bad guy, as I say, as a stereotype by Simone de Beauvoir, thanks to the theories in the 80s of Germaine Green. As I say, this is not something biological, but it's something that has been induced by the literature, by the romantic storytellers, which has meant that women consider that a man loves them when they invite them to dinner, when they want to defend them, when they show jealousy, to protect them. And that's the way males show their love. And that's the type of masculinity that we're up against when they are protecting you. So we talk about, of course, the princesses, women being princesses, as we saw at the time of Disney. This is something that has been constructed by society. It's not something that comes from nature. Now, some comment says women really like bad guys. That's why the good guys are left out. They're looking for men that treat them badly. Then they complain, of course. All of them want a bad guy. The good ones are invisible. If you're not aggressive, if you're not alpha, well, women aren't interested in you. Then we have the idea of a hypergamia, the idea that women look for men of a higher status. Many men complain that women, the only thing that they're looking for is in men is an ATM. They're searching for women, for money, I should say. So why shouldn't I look for young virgins that will look after my home and my children? Right? So let's see what preferences one has. With the survey I analyzed, if guys, what importance do they give with regard to money, beauty, study? How do they set their priorities? Beauty was first for men. And for some women, but with regard to some women, I should say, but for women, it's not money they're looking for. What they give priority to are studies, the studies that men have carried out. And beauty, well, would be between the two. So they give less priority to money. When they talk about studies, what is it? This is what the males say. They say when they talk about studies, is money they're interested. We've analyzed these studies based on classical feminist ideas And psychology tells us that things aren't like that. Women prefer a male with the same level of studies that she has, because what they most appreciate in men, that they have a proactive personality, that they want to work on projects that have an individual differentiated personality or character, if you like. They have to they look for good levels of conversation. That's why they don't want to be a partner to males that have less education than them. But now we see that women are, as I say, going out with men that have less studies. But then the average woman, as I say, what she defends, that's what she defends. Now I'd like to talk about women with children and the defense of pornography and prostitution. I think the clock is against me, but I would like to comment before I conclude this presentation. I'd like to talk about experiences of machismo or of chauvinism, right? And I'd like to stop and talk about this because this report analyzed the masculine perception and their comments, and then the feminine perception, what they have lived and their perception. We talk about, well, we talk about sexuality, and women, as I say, suffer from abuse. A lot of, and so they prefer, sometimes they say that they prefer to be single forever, or they have romantic relationships with women, or simply they'll just dedicate themselves to their career, and love is the last thing on their agenda. And then cyber items. So where men send sexual images, for instance, photographs of the male instrument, they send photographs to women. Also, they report comments with regard to specific proposals, but sort of flirting. You see this in TikTok or in Facebook, in X, and a hostile environment is created for women. And what we find here, that in psychological studies and sociological studies, lots of men say that women are more controlling than themselves. The cyber control and cyber abuse is carried out by women, because look what they do on social networks and what they put up. They're waiting to see if the likes are given by the males. So the men say that women are more jealous than men. But when we take a look at jealousy, and we see what Yolanda Rodriguez Castro wrote on this a report. I can't remember what university it was from. I think it was the University of Vigo. And that university, she analyzes feminine and masculine envy or jealousy. So we see males' jealousy is motivated by wanting to control women. This is related directly to male chauvinism and to dominate them, that they submit. She has to be, that she only wants to be with me, and as superiority of men over women, in other words. The fact that he has the right to control her life. But feminine jealousy is motivated by the actual environment created by social networks. Their boyfriend is following the profile of lots of women on internet and giving them likes. So they realize that maybe they're not the only ones. So we see this cyber situation where we have different interpretations of this. Women can be disposable. Women are afraid to be on their own, not to have a partner. The lack of self-esteem is the last psychological outcome of this. And we see the controlling effect of men. And then ghosting, as I say, is another item. Lots of women find that they're ignored after they've had sexual relationships with the male. They're left to one side. What are you looking for when you're when you want to go out with a male? Lots of people use the internet to find a partner, not just to go out with somebody, or others for what we call casual sex. 50% of the women say they're looking for love, and only 23% casual sex. But 42% of women said that they have had casual sex, but they don't like casual sex. They had it because they want to find a partner. And if you don't go to bed with male, well, then you won't find a partner. We see that a lot of ghosting goes on, right? It's always the same circle, a new partner, then ghosting, and then another situation that hasn't worked out, so I'll go and find somebody else, and to see if at the end of the day I find my prince. And men, why are they so interested in casual sex, but then we see women, why do they not like casual sex? Yes, they're more afraid of it than anything else. If there's a physical risk there, if they take the male home, this is far greater with regard to women and casual sex compared to men and casual sex. But some women say that they like casual sex, and you can't control what male think. And they go forward with this chauvinist idea that they lose respect for women that they have made love to. They are degraded after they've had relations. So men feel much better. They feel great after they've had sexual intercourse, as I say, and they boast with their friends. But women don't boast, as I say, because it's not a medal that they can hang, as I say. We see the difference in perception by men and women when we talk about casual sex. What would be better? That everybody would use sex in a very open way, both male and female, or where women and men expect reciprocity after intercourse. I think it would be more desirable that men would want reciprocity with regard to sex and affection. Women feel the need to fulfill standards related to beauty. And if they don't achieve this, well, women have a far greater aesthetic pressure than men. With the perception of weight, for example, in 16,000 American girls, and it showed that men perceive themselves thinner than they actually are, while women see themselves fatter than they are. And as Virginia Woolf said, women are like a mirror that show men double their size, but obviously from a tall point of view. And so men feel great in love or in sexual relations, but women feel small. As I say, in the society of imagery, women don't find themselves unattractive, and their personal esteem their auto-esteem, I should say, is very low. They don't want to go to parties. They don't want to go to the beach. They're ashamed to go out on the street. They don't want to go to the beach because they feel they're fat, and they don't want to wear a bikini. They don't want to go out in the street if they haven't made up, or if they haven't done their hair nicely, etc. We have found messages of depersonalization in the networks. They went into Instagram and they saw all the faces of women Instagram because they found them abnormal, but they themselves wanted to look like them. They decided it's what they have to follow in beauty. And as I say, they had had different surgery so that they would look like these. So they were influencers in the social networks. They said when they put up photographs, when they wanted to, well, give their personal opinions, or if they wanted to write poetry and put it up there, they got no likes, not even by their family. But when they put up a photograph of their bottoms, well, they get likes from everybody. So we don't know who I am, what I'm in, why I'm in Instagram, etc. So it's depersonalization and alienation, as I say. Women will put up insults, threats, cyber violence on internet. They feel frustrated by their experience. A lot of them don't want to have a relationship with males. I receive messages from men. They ask me for a sexual photo or sex without even knowing me. I find this so upsetting. It's disgusting. I feel used, as I say, as if I was of no value whatsoever. And if I don't use filters or I don't have a perfect body, well, they just ignore you. I rejected a guy in Tinder and he criticized me, saying I was fat and I deserve to be alone, but I would prefer to be alone than put up with this. These experiences are telling us that digital chauvinism reinforced the sexual toll. In other words, to be of value, you have to pay a toll in the field of sexualization or beauty. Women are acknowledged only by males is through their beauty, but for men, it's their personal and professional points that are taken into consideration by women. But we see there's a clear obsession with beauty on social networks. As a conclusion, the digital environment is increasing male chauvinism thanks to the idea of the wall atheism, estrophilia, the stigma of body count, sexuality in women, and hate for single mothers. That this obsession for feminine beauty, but while they defend this beauty, they are stigmatizing women. The experience of women in Tinder shows us a hostile environment and lack of equality. Women suffer pressures to fall into this image. We have to recognize that digital chauvinism is not only a virtual problem. No, it's also affecting the relationship among partners in the 21st century and giving us a sociological gap, as I say. And we're seeing problems with regard to the birth rate, etc. cyber abuse, cyber violence is a phenomenon that's not only on internet, but is permeating amongst all the relationships, not only amongst partners, but on a social level. Well, thank you very much for your attention. And I would tell you to read The Sexual Toll, and then we can continue with this conversation.
Muchas gracias, Tasia. Tenemos
Thank you very much. We have some time for questions in case anybody would like to ask a question or make a comment.
sí.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I really liked it, and personally, as myself, and I think it is quite right what you just said. There is something which I didn't quite agree with. At one point, you invited to reflect upon the relationships, a relationship that is based more on a liquid relationship, or a kind of relationship where you find you seek an effective and sexual reciprocity. And you said that one is more sought by men, liquidity, and the other one is more by women. But I don't quite agree with this, because I don't think that trying to have sexual casual sex is actually negative, and trying to have a stable relationship is a better thing. Rather, I think that the main problem resides in the fact and the way that men relate to women. I think that the problem is more to be found there, because at the end of the day, it seems to me that the digital space actually enlarges and makes bigger the gender gap. And the problem is that men are not kind of trying to adapt to all these changes that are coming through feminism. And I think that through casual sex was like this in the past as well. But the problem now is that the digital context has actually made the problem bigger. So the problem is not to decide whether or not sexual casual sex is worse or better than a stable relationship, but rather the fact that as women, we deserve respect, even if we practice casual sex. We are people, persons, rather than a body with which masturbate. And I think that the problem is basically more to focus on them, because we should ask them to have a kind of casual sex that is more equitable. Yes, I agree with you. We don't have much time, so maybe we can group the questions. We'll group the questions, and then we'll give the floor to you to answer them in one at the same time. Okay, thank you. I am Angela. I am a nurse specializing in the sexual diseases. And the last 20 years, I've been in Catalonia, in a center that deals with sexual transmission diseases. And I've seen many prostitutes and many women with this kind of diseases. And after all these years working, not only have not we solved the problem of these women, but also we've, the impression I have is that we've had to actually make it bigger. We've made it bigger, but not just for for younger girls as well, because this relationship much easier, rapid, and the fact of the matter is that, and I don't know whether from this group something can be done to tackle this problem, because the problem still exists. It's a problem that will always exist. Sexual intercourse, open, closed, whatever you want to, sexual relations have always existed, they exist, and they will exist in the future. But I would like to say that women need to be sure that women are not frigid, but men are just in those cases useless. Thank you.
Vamos a ver, como no tenemos mucho tiempo, quienes quieran pedir la palabra, alcen la mano, hay 2 palabras pedidas y cerramos y ya le damos la palabra.
We will listen to one more question, 2 more questions. I don't know whether anybody else would like to ask a question or make a comment, and otherwise 3 people, and that would be it. Then we'll pass the floor to the speaker, Tasia, who will answer. Thank you very much, Tasia. I think your presentation has been really very illustrative. I think you've covered all the phenomena that we find today in social media, the body count concept, which I've actually found, I came across with in TikTok, and I actually thought it was absurd, an absurd concept. But in relation to what was said before about casual sex, I think that sometimes women actually get involved in this kind of casual sex without realizing that they're having casual sex, because they are kind of pressure to have this kind of sex. And in these platforms and applications like digital sort of dating applications, sometimes some men actually show that they want to have a stable relationship, but they're using this app to have casual sex. And women feel kind of forced to, I mean, they have casual sex because I think they're going to, through it, to have a personal, a stable relationship. So they feel they have to do it because they might feel that other girls might actually be doing it. And this is a lot of pressure for women. And another day, I remember once, I thought that once women, one day having a date with a man, with a dating man, from the 3rd date, at maximum, you have to have a sexual relationship because if you carry on, I mean, you have all the dates, you're dating the boy or the man, and you're not going to bed with him, they may actually drop you. And this is a lot of pressure for girls and women. And some women feel involved in this kind of casual sex without actually think that it is having actual sex, because they think that the boy finds something else. And then they find themselves in a ghosting situation and feel themselves used because they thought that their partner they were dating was seeking to have a stable relationship and getting to know each other rather than actually dropping her, which what he did. Thank you very much also for your presentation. I think it was a fantastic presentation of the problem. I had 2 very brief questions. I would like to ask you whether you've taken into account this phenomenon in girls, women with disabilities. And also, I would like to ask you whether you've reflected upon the fact of reflected upon how to intervene, how to tackle the problem with young people, because we find it very difficult to deal with it with young people. I don't know why. Thank you. The last question. I think what you said, yes. Your reference, constant reference about ideology and thinking of the 50s as a point of reference, I think I found it very strange. And really, I am a digital illiterate, but if you see that all statistics in the digital world, the participation of women at the university, a doctor, the medicine sector, legal sector. I mean, you see how women are making a lot of progress. How come that in the area of digital media, which are the new relationship model, we see a degradation towards a field that is known, the 50s? I find it very difficult to understand. How can we actually understand this? You talk about the algorithm. What is the function of this algorithm in this relation between the real world, the non-digital world, and the digitization of relationships? I don't know. I find it difficult to understand. It gives. Okay, first of all, about casual sex, I'll say the following. These are theses that I found, that I sought in order to understand why women thought less interesting than men casual sex. And for that purpose, I found in bibliography and Simone de Beauvoir, that already said something about casual sex. She practiced casual sex, and she had an open relationship with her partner. But she actually mentioned and reported in general terms the kind of problems that women find in this kind of relations, insecurity, the perception that they have after having sexual sex compared to women. And this made for the phenomenon not to be, I mean, we would like for things to be equal, but we live in a context where people think differently. And the problem is not the actual casual sex in itself, but rather the fact that these casual sex takes place in a patriarchal society, and therefore for women it's potentially dangerous, unpleasant, and you find it not worthwhile, and you prefer a relationship, a model that is more based on monogamy. And this is a decision that one as a woman takes, because in this context is the most interesting thing, the most positive thing for you. And some women even think that they prefer not to have any kind of relationship with men. So I did not actually try in my presentation to stigmatize casual sex in women, but rather to make it understandable, the fact that women in a majority say that they don't like casual sex, but they feel forced to have it. And that's a problem, because they feel a lot of pressure to have take in a sexist kind of behavior, not because of casual sex itself, but because of the social elements. In terms of prostitution and how prostitution is being facilitated in virtual settings, I'd like to mention the OnlyFans social network, where women put up erotic videos, photos of themselves, and men pay in order to use those contents. It's a social media like Instagram, but focusing on pornography, amateur pornography. Any woman can put up public pornographic pictures or video clips. And now men contact with these women at OnlyFans to prostitute them. Maybe a girl that I think she thinks that she is making money, thinking that she's in a safe place, can be drawn into prostitution without knowing. And this is a phenomenon that has been deeply analyzed. The internet is also having an impact on traditional prostitution, because now it's much more difficult to kind of locate where the pimps are, so to speak. and than before. People get those services through the internet, and we are in the context of fluid and localized prostitution in the digital world, and the Z generation can be against it, but we see very many Z generation men who make comments in favor of it and think that this is open sex culture. They think that this is part of the open sex culture that we are living. So they don't not even able to make the difference between something positive, and if anyway, all kind of sexual forms are positive. They are not able to make the difference between this and other forms of sexuality that are using people and that are oppressive. So, and they use all kind of fetish elements, masochism, which can be potentially be dangerous, and that covers also male chauvinistic and violent ideology. Is actually being placed at the same place as homosexuality, where homosexuality is unequal, a relationship between equals. About lying. Lying and lies is also an element being tackled in my report. Ghosting and lying, and many other elements that women have reported. Men who have taken advantage of the fact that she has drunk in excess or taken drugs in order to be violent, sexually violent with her. Men who invent character to get in touch with women. Men who lie about the fact of not being married, about the physical appearance and look, about many things. So lying in order to have instrumental sex is a normal pattern of behavior in men, and this is not much in women. Women do not carry out instrumental sex. Women do ghost into, and sometimes in a higher percentage than men, but when we go into the female ghosting, what we find in the case of men is instrumental sex, and they lie in order to get sex. And a kind of ghosting carried out by women, instrumental sex is not something that they seek, but rather they are afraid of the reaction of men. Sometimes they say that they feel ashamed, but if they say that some men don't accept the fact that she doesn't want to carry on a relationship, and they prefer to just disappear without saying anything because they are afraid of they're afraid of having a confrontation with physical or through internet with men or with a particular man. In terms of women and girls with abilities and with disabilities, I have not tackled this issue in my report, in my publication, but there is violence against women with disabilities. Virtually, there is in OnlyFans. There is a sector of men who try to get in touch with women without disabilities, and disability actually, this disability or being ill actually facilitates sexual violence by men. How can we intervene to tackle this problem, to solve this problem? Well, it depends on the problem, specific problem in itself. In some things that we find in OnlyFans, maybe we could actually ban OnlyFans in our country, as in Sweden, have done the Swedish. Other more vague phenomena as the sexualized culture that we find in social media, or in general terms in music and the digital culture and the culture, social culture in general, actually will require a deep change in the mind frame of our society. And this should be tackled from all angles and from all aspects. The media should be more proactive when it comes to generated contents and combat discrimination. And social media should ban certain behaviors like explicit pornography. Explicit pornography should be restricted in social media. The algorithm, Tinder algorithm actually reflects reality. The Tinder algorithm reflects reality, but at the same time reinforces it. In the same way as artificial intelligence reflects society, but on reflecting it reinforces it and is like a feedback. So technology companies cannot say, oh, it's not our problem because we're just reflecting society. No, because they are responsible for the fact that they provide the necessary tools for the reinforcing of this reflection of society. And your question, the question related to the parallelism or the parallel between this research and the 50s. And so why there is this explanation? Yeah, okay. Why certain phenomena and patterns repeat themselves throughout history? The body count, demanding female virginity, thinking that sexual violence responds to masochism by women. These are elements that are found throughout history, and they emerge more strongly in certain moments in time, where there is a kind of wave of male chauvinism, of sexism, and there is an advance of feminism, and this gives rise to a sociological reaction in the form of sexism and female and male chauvinism. And this was found also in the 80s, but I focus in the 50s. And this happens after feminism wave. In the 50s, it was after the suffragist feminism, and in the 80s, after an openness of the culture. What sociological phenomena could explain this? Well, the fact, I think, that apart from a reaction against feminism and the actual advance of women in society accepting this, there is also a link with the economy. It seems that when there has been an important economic crisis that has given rise to male unemployment and loss of professional opportunities for men. Well, when this has happened in history, those young males tried to reaffirm themselves, and they found a way in trying to obtain an advantage over women, to reinforce the self-esteem. And the self-esteem is projected in hating towards women as a goatscape. And they develop this kind of hatred for women. They don't realize that women also suffer. And there also discrimination in digital society, because they have also to suffer the discrimination in terms of housing, being young, but they have to add as to this sexual violence in social media. But in general terms, they think that men think that if they can sell their sexual pictures in OnlyFans, or they can get millions of thousands of likes by sharing the bottom on Instagram, well, they have it's a kind of advantage, because they have an advantage in terms of enjoying sex that men don't have, and they have a lot of sims like men, that losers in a way, that would be willing to do whatever they want, women want, and this is why they think that women enjoy an advantage in society and the privileges in the digital society that they do not have. And that's what they think. And this is not true, really. This is not, that's not true if we think about the conclusions that I've reached. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Tasia.
Thank you, Tasia. We've taken a little bit more of time than we thought, but we are going to listen to the next, we are going to have another panel now. I would like for Alexandra Laura Mirjana to come to the panel.
Y vaya útil. Yo me pongo en un extremo, poneros más porque soy la que vais a manejar. El ordenador aquí.
Las presentaciones. Esta es la tuya, ¿no?
Sí,
Sí.
¿Sentamos a nosotros?
No, donde quieras.
Aquí mismo.
Sí. Ay, espera. Sí, hay un mandito. Creo que la tuya, como es PDF, la vas a tener que pasar así, no con el mando.
Ok.
¿Sí? Vale. Están todas las presentaciones aquí, ¿vale? La tuya también está aquí. ¿Dice? Está Laura, y la de Radco de las one. Ok. So, la cosa es que estamos transmitiendo por Zoom. Entonces hay que darle a compartir pantalla.
Me parece que no tenéis que tener.
Sí, lo que pasa es que hubo una aliada porque la gente se inscribió para venir presencial y pensaban que le iba a llegar el link. Pero ahora todos los que me están se lo están mandando. Si me escribió alguien de tu equipo. Yeah, sure. Okay.
And Mirjana?
Mirjana.
But I can also sit here and then I'll move here. Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to move.
La cosa es que no veo.
Personally, I need to see the slide, so.
You're gonna have it here. Oh, no me aparece.
Ya lo ves, ¿verdad?
Sí, o sea, tengo la presentación aquí. Lo que quiero es compartir la pantalla en Zoom.
Van a hablar Radko y Mirjana primero y luego Alessandra y Laura. Digo por el orden. Radko primero, ¿no?
Yes, sí. I think you can go, I would. Deja
Sentaros.
Sí.
Presente.
Sí. El remoto, there is yes, you have the control there.
Yeah, but may I use the pointer because of showing?
Yeah, for sure, as you feel. So the only thing is,
Buenas. Aunque esté en un extremo, no importa, porque mi única
My only mission, as I say, is to introduce people and be a moderator. But I do want to say something that this round table is the one that we are going to use to analyze quantitative analysis, a survey that has been carried out within BE-SAFE with Portugal, Croatia, and Spain. A qualitative analysis, as I say, in different focus groups that have been used in the 3 countries. There's a lot of other parts of BE-SAFE as well, as we know, but training, etc. But we had to choose something, so we decided to choose this, the quantitative and qualitative elements. And we feel it is important to know the different opinions and what has come up, as I say, in focus group, at least in Spain, this is the way things were done. We had 24 focus groups from young people, students, or professionals as well. We got their opinions with regard to qualitative and quantitative analyses. So this is really the core of the project. So what I'm going to do is introduce the 2 speakers. They are from Croatia. They are going to talk about the qualitative part, but and the quantitative analysis as well, with regard to the surveys that were carried out in the different countries. I'll introduce them in the following way. Radko, who, as I say, is a deputy professor and researcher in psychology, or associate, I should say, associate professor in the IDIZ Institute, and he has taken part in qualitative and quantitative analysis. He used to work in the psychology, Department of Psychology in Zagreb, and he's carried out scientific work as well with regard to psychology. He has participated in different projects with regard to social items, the market, communication, etc. And he's published some works. And Mirjana, because I'm going to introduce her as well, but they're both going to make the presentation. She is a senior scientific doctor in the field of psychology, and she works in the Social Research Institute of Zagreb. And as I say, she works in Croatia, and she has published 5 books and 70 articles, professional articles in the field of sociology, gender, youth, etc. She's done a lot of research work, collaborating with scientific institutes on an international and local ones. And then I will introduce Alexandra and Laura, who are going to talk about the qualitative analysis that has been carried out both in Portugal and Spain.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ratko Đokic, and I'm coming from Institute for Social Research in Zagreb, where we conducted a research study on gender-based cyber violence among youth. And today I will focus on results regarding young people aged 18 to 27. This research study is a part of a broader international project which aims to raise awareness and deepen understanding of gender-based cyber violence among children and young people in Croatia, Portugal, and Spain. and to advocate for comprehensive legal and policy responses to gender-based cyber violence at both national and European level. A few more words about the study itself. So we conducted, in Croatia, Portugal, and Spain, we conducted a survey on nationally representative samples of children and young people aged 12 to 17 and youth aged 18 to 27, as well as on additional samples of parents of children aged 12 to 14. As I said, today I will speak about the results of for the category of youth aged 18 to 27. And in total, in this category, we had 2,236 respondents, 806 coming from Croatia, 793 from Portugal, and 637 from Spain. Overall, there were 42% of female respondents, around 45% of male respondents, and 13%, a little bit more, of 13% of respondents declaring themselves as a gender and or sexual minority. Regarding the results, I will first discuss the results on the gender-based cyber violence prevalence. So within the study, participants had the chance to report how often they have witnessed, experienced, or been victimized by or possibly perpetrated gender-based cyber violence, or more specifically, each of 20 specific forms of gender-based cyber violence in the past 12 months, using the scale from 1, which meant never, to 5, which meant daily or almost daily. As an illustration, here are all 20 different forms of gender-based cyber violence we asked our respondents about. For instance, sharing of someone's sexual semi-nude, nude, or sexual photos or videos without their consent, pressuring someone to send their semi-nude, nude, or sexual photos or videos, pressuring someone to talk about sex and their sexual activities, offering someone money for sex, and so on. So for prevalence, here are the prevalence rates for all 3 perspectives: witness, victim, and perpetrator, for all 3 countries and all 3 respondent categories: female, male, and genders and or sexual minorities. So we define prevalence as a percentage of respondents who encountered gender-based cyber violence at least once in the past 12 months. And overall, we observed a high level of consistency in results across all 3 countries. More specifically, prominence of gender-based cyber violence was evidenced by high prevalence of witnessing, exposure, and perpetration across all countries and all respondent groups. For witnessing, around 66% of respondents witnessed gender-based cyber violence among their peers at least once in the past 12 months. And these rates were even higher for GSM category of respondents, as high as 76% in Croatia and 84% in Portugal. For victimization, around 40% of both female and male participants in Croatia, around 50% of, again, both female and male participants in Portugal, and exactly half of male participants in Spain, and more than half of participants, female participants in Spain, reported being victimized by gender-based cyber violence at least once in the last 12 months. And again, these rates were even higher among gender and or sexual minorities. In each country, 55% for Croatia, 67% for Portugal, and 64% for Spain. Perpetration was also common and ranged from 15% for female respondents in Croatia to 31% for GSM respondents in Spain. Overall, so all 3 respondent categories, female, male, and GSM, were affected by gender-based cyber violence, with GSM respondents being more involved across all three categories as witnesses, victims, or perpetrators. Regarding common forms of gender-based cyber violence and possibly emerging patterns, what we saw was that most common across all three subsamples and perspectives as witness, victims, or perpetrators, two forms were most common. So these were insulting someone based on their body appearance and using sexually derogatory insults. So the prominence of these two forms could suggest blurred lines between everyday communication and abuse, suggesting that GBCV may be perceived as colloquial or normalized among young people, further indicating lack of awareness of or sensitivity toward gender-based cyber violence. This is further illustrated by patterns seen in Croatia and Portugal, where unsolicited sexual messages were commonly witnessed and experienced, especially by female and GSM respondents, yet rarely self-reported as perpetrated. And threats and blackmail involving physical violence, which was the form frequently witnessed or experienced specifically among male subsample, yet less commonly acknowledged as perpetrated. This pattern could suggest some kind of recognition gap, in the sense that young people may recognize gender-based cyber violence when others engage in it, but not when they themselves do it. Furthermore, across all three countries, whether as witnessed, experienced, or perpetrated, common were also spreading lies about someone's sexual behavior or sexual orientation, and insulting someone based on their looks, which may imply a homosexual orientation. And these data could suggest that perceived deviations from normative gender and sexual roles may increase vulnerability to gender-based cyber violence or shape how it is expressed. Frequently reported as perpetrated, but rarely witnessed or experienced, was online monitoring and controlling of a partner. And this pattern of frequent perpetration, but not so frequent witnessing or experiencing, could suggest that some forms of gender-based cyber violence can take hidden or private forms. For instance, that gender-based cyber violence may be kept private within romantic relationships, or that in some cases victims may not perceive themselves as victims. And once again, this suggests the hidden, normalized, or under-recognized nature of some gender-based cyber violence forms. Furthermore, among most commonly personally experienced and or perpetrated forms in all three countries and all three subsamples were pressure to talk about sex or one's sexual activities, or pressure or offers of money to share sexualized images, or offers of money for sex. And these forms point to coercive and transactional forms of gender-based cyber violence, where individuals are reduced to sexual objects and their sexuality being commodified. Regarding the profile of GBCV perpetrators, at least in the most recent instances of gender-based cyber victimization that respondents reported, and these instances that includes one individual perpetrator, it showed that perpetrators were predominantly males, primarily targeting female or GSM individuals, and that perpetrators are more frequently known to their victims than complete strangers, often coming from victims' close social circles, such as current or former friends, partners, friends, and so on. Among different reactions or responses to gender-based cyber victimization, passive approach of ignoring the problem and hoping it would resolve on its own was one of the most common, and even more prevalent among male participants. And also we noticed some kind of silence about incidents in a sense that most frequently when our respondents were asked about whom they had told about their victimization experience, one of the most frequent responses was they didn't told anyone. And only a minority of respondents reported the incidents they experienced to institutions such as police, support centers, NGOs, or ombudsperson. Besides its high prevalence, so these two patterns, prevalence of known mainly male perpetrators in combination with concerning patterns of silence and passivity in response to gender-based cyber violence, once more may indicate to normalization of gender-based cyber violence, stigma surrounding victimhood, and perceived lack of support of or resources. And beside high prevalence of gender-based cyber violence, we also observed that victimization had substantial negative impacts on those affected, such as high emotional distress, poorer mental health, heightened feelings of loneliness and social isolation, more frequent behavioral and emotional issues related to internet use, and negative academic and professional impacts. Notably, the similar patterns of negative effects were also observed among the respondents who reported perpetrating the gender-based cyber violence themselves. So this could indicate that some kind of bidirectional relation in the sense that gender-based cyber violence may both result from but also contribute to mental health, emotional and interpersonal difficulties. This is it for now, and thank you for your attention.
Okay. I will now present the extent to which different forms of cyber violence are present among adolescents, girls and boys aged 12 to 17 in Croatia, Spain, and Portugal. And then I will shortly present, because we haven't got enough time, some experiences of parents in all three countries regarding online children's behavior. So you can see this slide, this figure, where you can see that red line is a female and a blue line is a male. And I also prepare similar figures about data in Spain and Portugal also. So we can see that in digital peer cultures, especially those shaped by image-centric platforms, children learn that their appearance is constantly under scrutiny, and that failing to meet aesthetic or behavioral norms can result in shame, mockery, or social exclusion. Therefore, it is not surprising that at the top of the list, 34% of children altogether in Croatia report being insulted based on their body appearance. 29 report being insulted with sexually derogatory terms, and 26 report being received unwanted sexual messages. As can be seen, this type of violence is mostly reported by girls, as is most other violence, except for threats and blackmail through physical violence. This, along with other forms of pressure, such as being asked to talk about sexual activities, being asked to send intimate images, and were ignored or excluded online because they refuse to engage in sexual conversations, points to the extent to which sexual coercion has become embedded in online youth interactions. These experiences signal a failure to understand and respect the meaning and importance of consent. We heard about consent 2 minutes or 3 minutes ago in your concept of interpretation of Simone de Beauvoir. So we have many, I think that we have many similarities in this empirical data and your interpretation. Another concerning finding is that 13% of children report being monitored or controlled online by a partner, ex, or someone they had a romantic interest in. Almost 1/5 of children experienced the spreading of lies about their sexual behavior or orientation, and 7% were insulted based on their looks that may imply homosexual orientation. Although less frequent, reports of non-consensual sharing of private data, sexual images, or fake sexual content point to serious breaches of trust and privacy. These behaviors reflect that intimate materials can be used as tools of humiliation and control. Even fewer common experiences, such as being offered money for sexual images, being threatened with sexual violence, or being targeted through hacked accounts, imply how some children are exposed to exploitation and manipulation in ways that they are very similar to adult patterns of digital abuse. This data from Croatia indicate that while both boys and girls are affected by cyber violence, girls consistently report higher rates of victimization across a range of sexually intrusive, coercive, and reputationally damaging behaviors. These differences highlight how digital environments can be understood as gendered spaces where power and control are often exercised along traditional lines of femininity and masculinity. One of the clearest examples of gendered harm is found in experiences of pressure to send sexual images, where 21% of girls reported being pressured compared to 5% of boys. These findings point to the normalization of sexual coercion in digital peer relationships and reflects a broader culture where girls are positioned as providers of intimate content, often under emotional manipulation of threat and social consequences. Similarly, 35% of girls reported receiving unwanted sexual messages compared to 17% of boys. These messages that are unsolicited, intrusive, and often persistent illustrate how girls' online presence is more frequently sexualized. Reputational violence is also more commonly directed at girls. Almost a quarter of girls experienced the spreading of lies about their sexual behavior or orientation, compared to 13% of boys, which reflects how female sexuality remains heavily politicized and how digital gossip serves as a tool of social regulation and punishment. For girls, such rumors can have lasting emotional and social consequences, especially in peer cultures where a sexual double standard persists. Interestingly, boys were more likely than girls to report that someone has shared fake sexual photos, videos, or audio content. Although this reversal is notable, it may reflect differences in how boys and girls are targeted. For boys, these incidents may at times be framed or perceived as forms of ridicule or prank. Yet, this does not mean they are emotionally insignificant. For girls, such acts are more often tied to reputational damage and deeper emotional distress, which may also lead to underreporting. Finally, almost 1/5 of girls reported that they were monitored or controlled online by a romantic partner, compared to 8% of boys. This points to an alarming trend in adolescent relationships, the early normalization of coercive digital control as a form of affection or jealousy. Now I have a figure from Portugal, so I will shortly comment these results. So one of the most marked gender differences is seen in experiences of unwanted sexual messages. Here in Portugal, 33% of girls reported receiving such messages, compared to 60% of boys. This substantial gender gap points to the finding that presence of girls online is more often sexualized and surveilled. A similar pattern emerges in the experience of sexually derogatory insults reported by 35% of girls and 21% of boys. These insults function as a form of symbolic violence, often used to police behavior, appearance, or gender performance. For girls, such language reinforces harmful norms around sexual respectability and often targets those perceived as transgressing social expectations. For boys, derogatory terms may be used to question masculinity, particularly in relation to perceived weakness or non-conformity. However, the higher rates among girls suggest that the burden of online sexual regulation is disproportionately placed on them. Interestingly, in Portugal, boys were more likely than girls to report being offered money for sex. While this reverses the trend seen in other indicators, it may reflect the different ways boys are targeted within exploitative or transsexual interactions. Alternatively, girls may underreport these experiences due to fear, shame, or social stigma. Together, these differences underscore that cyber violence among children is not experienced equally. Girls are more often subjected to verbal and sexual harassment, and boys, who are less frequently targeted in these ways, may face other forms of violence that reflect peer dynamics and exploitative content circulating in male-dominated online spaces. These findings emphasize the need for gender-sensitive approaches in digital safety education, ones that recognize not only the prevalence of violence, but the specific forms it takes for different groups. Now we have a figure from Spain. You can see that at the top of the list, 30% of children, boys and girls together in Spain, reported being insulted based again on their body appearance, making it most common form of online victimization. This suggests that physical appearance remains a central marker of social value and a frequent target of ridicule. Closely following, 27% of children experienced insults with sexually derogatory terms, and an equal percentage reported threats or blackmail involving physical violence. A significant number of children reported that someone had spread lies about their sexual behavior or orientation. This type of violence operates as a form of social control and targets children's identities. 1 in 5 children reported being pressured to talk about sex or sexual activities, and 14% experienced pressure to send sexual images. These findings indicate a normalization of sexual coercion in online peer interactions, where boundaries are often ignored or manipulated. For many children, especially girls, these experiences may be difficult to resist or report, as they are embedded in wider dynamics or peer pressure, flirtation, and digital intimacy. Experiences of monitoring or control by a current or former partner further point to the rise of technology-facilitated control in adolescent relationships. Behavior such as checking messages, demanding passwords, or tracking activity are increasingly framed as a sign of affection or concern, when in fact they reflect emerging forms of emotional abuse. Other forms of digital violence, such as sharing personal data without consent, excluding someone from a group for refusing to engage in sexual conversation, or sharing private sexual conversations, are less commonly experienced by children in Spain. Although less common, actions such as blackmail with sexual content, threats of sexual violence, offers of money for sexual material, or fake content being shared reflect more extreme but still present violations, many of which echo adult patterns of exploitation. A statistically significant gender difference emerges in the experience of having one's semi-nude, nude, or sexual images shared without consent. According to the data, 11% of boys reported this experience compared to only 3% of girls. One possible interpretation is that boys may be targeted in ways that are framed as jokes, dares, or public humiliation, particularly within male peer groups where emotional vulnerability is often stigmatized and digital content becomes a tool for control or mockery. It is also possible that girls underreport these experiences due to fear of stigma, victim blaming, or reputational damage. As a conclusion of this part of a report, we can see that country profile vary at the margins, but the core pattern is consist. Appearance-based insults lead, sexualized name calling follows, and sexualized contact or messaging is common third strand. It might be said that the typical victim experience is shared gender phenomena rather than a set of isolated country-specific incidents. What do parents say? I will shortly present some of the results. So parents are aware of children's risky online behaviors, noting that children most often add strangers to their friends or contacts and send personal information to unknown individuals. When we have in mind that we have a sample of children from 12 to 14 years old, especially their parents, it is very concerning data. Children frequently think parents visit websites with sexual content and share personal data with people they have never met in real life. Parents also recognize the creation of fake identities on social media and access to sexually themed content. In Croatia, 10% of boys and 8% of girls aged 12 to 14 had met in person someone they had previously communicated with online. In Portugal, these figures and in Spain are much higher, you can see. Regarding digital safety, about half of parents in all three countries believe that their children possess the skills needed to handle unforeseen situations online and to report inappropriate content. So you can see how it works with parents. Parental mediation is very important in when we all talk about cyber violence. This parental mediation varies across countries. In Croatia, around half of parents practice restrictive mediation, including limiting time spent online, while about 1/3 impose bans or content blocks. Most parents explain which websites are appropriate and show interest in their children's online activities, with oversight more frequently directed toward girls. In Spain, the largest share of parents, about 80%, express interest in their children's online activities, while roughly half apply restrictive forms of mediation. Parents believe perpetrators are most often male, while female perpetrators are identified far less frequently. They also consider that threats most commonly come from acquaintances, friends, or individuals within the child's broader social cycle. Nearly 90% of parents in Croatia, 67 in Portugal, and 61 in Spain believe that children turn to them after receiving threats or having negative online experiences, indicating a higher level of trust in parents, especially in Croatia. Smaller shares of children turn to other family members or friends, while schools and school staff play a very, very limited role in addressing such situations. Only 4% of parents or guardians in the full sample reported contacting the police. Parents report relatively limited awareness of the consequences of online behavior. A small share of parents in Croatia, but markedly higher share in Portugal and Spain, believe that children received lower grades due to negative online communication experiences. Overall, parents are permissive regarding internet use, express moderate confidence in children's ability to cope with risks, and rarely view their children as perpetrators, even though they recognize children's exposure to various forms of cyber violence. This raises some questions about the extent to which parents understand these experiences as gender-based cyber violence, as well as whether they recognize that some psychosocial difficulties are directly linked to intensive internet use and negative online experience. Thank you for your attention.
Bueno, la mesa no ha acabado, es simplemente hecho la...
Well, we've listened to the different presentations, and I would like to introduce to you the other two people who are going to speak about Spain and Portugal. Alessandra Silva, who is going to speak first, is the coordinator of projects and research of the Portuguese platform for the rights of women, one of the partners in the project. She's the manager of the project in Portugal. She is a senior sociologist and a senior researcher in human rights, in women's rights. She has a lot of experience in feminist policies and against male chauvinism. She's run a number of projects at a European and national level, and she is one of my colleagues. She's a colleague of mine because she belongs also to the European, Europe Women Lobby. And the other person we're going to be listening to is Claudia Gro. She is a PhD in international relations and politic relations. She is a responsible person for research and European projects at the Autonomous Region Community Special Project. And she, as well as other two institution associations in Murcia and Asturias, have been conducting the largest part of the qualitative research, because we think that the professional profile was the most adequate to carry out this kind of job. So they will be talking more about the qualitative aspects rather than the quantitative, both in Portugal and Spain. Even though Laura was responsible in Madrid, the three responsible people of the three associations have been coordinated, and she is very knowledgeable about the whole of Spain in that sense. Alessandra uses the floor. Thank you very much. I could speak in Portuñol, but
and I translated the English phrase to Spanish maybe there are some mistakes because it was automatic translation online. So please bear with me and sorry if there is mistakes there. First of all, I would like to say that it was a great pleasure to hear from Tasia, because I think she put a roof on our research to where we look from the reality, so we can look up and see why this is happening, and thank you for that. So what we did in Portugal, as similar to Croatia and Spain, we conducted 27 focus groups with children aged from 13 mostly, 13 to 18 years old, and with teachers and specialized staff in school, like psychologists. We did it 3 focus groups per school, one only with boys, the other only with girls, and the other with the professionals. A total of 182 children participate, 102 staff and teachers participate. And then we did also 2 interviews with the 2 law enforcement agencies in Portugal that are covering all the country, which is PSP and GNR. And we did it within the regions of the project, that is Great Lisbon, not Lisbon City, but Great Lisbon, all the municipalities around Lisbon, Alentejo, which is a more, I would say, rural area, more scarcity in terms of population, and then Central Portugal, which is very, it has medium-sized population. Our findings really worried us, I would say. It came to evidence what we are talking about in between us as feminists, and really scared us, the findings. What they say about when they are present in social media, when they are alive in online life, the main risks identified for them was insults, but also sexist hate speech. And that is a phenomenon that we are seeing in Portugal, where even people from the parliament are truly defining sexist hate speech within the parliament, within the plenary sessions in the parliament, but also outside, and using social media as a platform for amplifying the sexist hate speech. Also, the misuse of images, or what it's called the sexual forgeries. Now, for instance, we didn't focus that much on artificial intelligence, but maybe we should be looking more of what this is creating among young people in specific. Also sexual harassment and unsolicited sexual content. And this is something that really came from the focus groups, with girls with 13 years old receiving photos of men's men's genitalia, men's genitalia, men they did not know. And you are speaking about 13-year-old girls receiving from men, not from boys, but from men. So this is very worried in our perspective. And also blackmail, threats, and predatory behavior. And this is also connected to the what we seen as intimate partner violence. So it's very connected, because we see predatory behavior in that sense. So when a violent partner follows not only offline, not only in the streets or in the workplaces, but also online, namely using email tracking and GPS tracking, etc., etc. So this is the same pattern of violence women experience also. As I was saying, the sexist patterns. So girls, as we have been talking in this panel, but also with Tasia outcomes, girls are mainly targeted by sexualized cyber violence. This is a huge difference from boys' experiences of cyber violence. They are more targeted of insults, sometimes insults or threatens to physical violence. They sometimes happen then on physically, but it's very different, the types of violence boys and girls experience. And I must say that threats of rape is also a consistent among the cyber violence women and girls experience. And then perpetrators, and this is more common, perpetrators are mainly boys or men. This is also a pattern that we identified within our focus groups. And of course, girls are reporting higher psychological impact. This is due to the way we grew up, the way we see us, the way society expect us to be. So this is all connected, as Tasia was mentioning. We also asked about where does it happen, the cyber violence? What are the main places, the main social media? And here we see differences also. So for girls, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter or X now, Discord and Tinder. It's also connected with what you said about the most use of images, the most platform where cyber violence happens to girls. And boys, it's WhatsApp, because it's more physical threats, so it's more, I will do this to you, so yeah. Discord, Instagram, and Snapchat. Among all the list of social media we put forward for them to choose. Common risks is harassment, predators, and insults in terms of the platforms. So the impact on children and on young people. Anxiety, depression, low self-esteem. This is very common to find in boys and girls, I would say. Although then we see it differently when it comes to girls. Social isolation, this is very common among boys, and mistrust, this is more common among girls. And then self-harm, suicidal thoughts. This is so common among girls. This was a scary finding because within the groups of girls, most of them or did it themselves, so cutting themselves, or knew someone that does it. And there was a high frequency of young people that knew a friend or a friend of a friend that committed suicide. This was a finding that really worried us. And then, of course, a decline on the behavioral and academic. Of course, this with all these mental issues, it has to have an impact on the academic achievements, of course. When it comes to support seeking, I would say that most of them said that they would try to resolve by themselves first. So first try to resolve it, and then talk to friends. This was the most common way of getting some support or of dealing with cyber violence. Families appear in the third places, but very low. So they would resort to their mothers or to their fathers in specific cases, but rarely, I would say. And then when it comes to teachers, most of them do not speak with teachers when cyber violence is occurring. So it's something that it keeps to themselves or it keeps to the friends, and that it's not spoken to an adult person. What we came across also, there was a very, very low awareness of external support services. They did not know that they exist. They did not know where to go to. So this is also something that is important. For instance, in terms of the campaign we are thinking of within this project. What are the challenges that schools faced in Portugal? First, a lack of cyber violence protocols. Most teachers do not know what to do when they come across cyber violence, where to resort, how to resort. Should I pass information without asking permission from the girl or the boy who's telling me this? So there is this lack of protocols of action among schools. Then there is also little actions they think they can do when it comes outside the school grounds. If it happens outside, can I intervene? How can I intervene? So they also put themselves, I would say, outside of the picture because it's social media. It's not happening in the school grounds. So I can put myself out of the picture, and it's nothing schools have to deal with. And this also was very problematic in our view. There is also this perceived institutional inaction. Schools don't do nothing. This was something students told us. They do not act. If we tell something, they do not act. And sometimes they even blame us, especially girls, for the way they are the way they are dressed, and so on and so forth. There is, of course, a need for a clear guidelines, so those mentioned protocols, but also teachers training. And somehow this is also connected with what we are doing within this project, which is teacher training and how to deal with cyber violence acts. And then law enforcement, what law enforcement told us, some of the insights. First, they recognize there is a growing sexualized cyber violence. They do come across and they recognize it. Although they do not have specialized cyber violence units, I would say they have specialized units dealing with victims of domestic violence, but no specific training on cyber violence. So they rely on their skills, personal skills to get evidence, to look for it, etc., etc. Then there is this problematic issue that Madlenka also approached, which is reality moves much faster than our law. And this is happening in Portugal. So there is no specificity about crimes committed online related to intimate partner violence. So what police does, it classifies offenses within our penal code, and mostly around stalking or harassment, without this specificity of the online violence. They also told us that they need training, specialized training on these issues, and a stronger legislation. And this is good coming from the police. So it's not the feminists saying, it's the police. Of course, there are structural causes as approached before. Sexist stereotypes, hypersexualization of girls and women, this high impunity online. It doesn't, platforms survive, platforms grow, platforms gain more money. So nothing happens to them. And this is, of course, very problematic. There is also this low digital literacy in families. Most parents, and I think Mirjana told us, Mirjana told us that most parents do not know where their children are online, where their social media, what do they put on social media, because they think they follow their children on social media, but kids are very smart. They know how to so this is also something that we found on our focus groups. And then weak institutional response. This is also connected to what we experience related to intimate partner violence. There are, although, for example, in Portugal, there is a high number of complaints made on domestic violence, for instance, there is a low rate of perpetrators being convicted. So this is somehow also reflects on how children perceive crimes they are experiencing. In terms of recommendations, first of all, we have this huge opportunity, which is the directive, the European Directive on Violence Against Women and Domestic Violence. It has to be transposed to our legislation until June 2027, and we need to focus on the online aspect of this directive. Then, of course, school protocols to develop, but with the school itself, so they can own it, the protocols, not to present them a protocol, but to develop with them. And then systematic teacher training. We are doing this now, but what we would, so in the future, in 2 years ahead, will there be systematic training of teacher or not? How can we really put this as part of the teacher's curriculum to within the professional achievement? And then accountability for digital platforms. They cannot thrive on violence and crimes. And this is important for us as society. And of course, we have to develop and to lobby for stronger legislation related to the accountability of digital platforms. Sweden, of course, is always ahead in terms of legislation, and of course, but prohibit TikTok. I wouldn't see that happening in Portugal for sure. So we'll look for what it is best to adapt. And then survivor informed prevention strategy. It is very important to have this prevention strategy built upon the experiences of survivors. We have at least one organization, NGO, that is gathering survivors of cyber violence, and they are coming forward with prevention strategies, but also law reforms. And this is very important to have this perspective based on the survivors' experience. And of course, then cross-sector cooperation. This is nothing that is new in terms of intimate partner violence. So we have to have schools, but also social services and law enforcement agencies and youth organizations, and of course, women's organizations involved in prevention, but also in protecting measures. And this is it. Thank you so much. I will say that is it.
Bueno, buenas tardes.
Good afternoon. I had my doubts about doing it in English or in Spanish, but I think the majority here are Spanish, so I hope you don't mind that I speak Spanish. As has been commented, the Be-Safe project is in Portugal, Croatia, and Spain. And of course, we're one of the main partners, and we had the collaboration of the science and sociological studies here in Madrid and Murcia to carry out qualitative study. The different focus groups, we wanted to understand, well, cyber violence, where it has generated from, and also we wanted to invent some measures to fight against it. Just like in the other countries, that we had students in the focus group, teachers as well, and people who worked in education, and of course, the police. In the case of Spain, we carried out interviews and focus groups with a total of 140 students, 15 different groups. They were grouped by age, depending on what year they were at school, and those, of course, who were in professional training, vocational training, I should say. And there were some that were just men and others who were just women or girls and boys. We had focus groups with teachers and those who worked in education, 84 participants, and interviews, 3 interviews with the national police, with the master plan of the police, and an agent, and also a policeman from the local police in Murcia. As I said, it was carried out in Madrid and Murcia. And as I say, the focus groups were organized in the same way as they were in the 3 countries. There were the questions for students and for the adults, the risks online, offline, support to the victims and the procedures and the protocols. I would say that the greatest conclusion or finding that came out of this survey here in Spain was that the young people interviewed considered that violence doesn't have a gender. And they think anybody can be a victim. But when they give you examples, the majority that the women or girls are the victims and the perpetrators are the male population. And there's a reduced vision with regard to gender violence. The male is a perpetrator, the girl a victim. There are clear stereotypes there. They talk about the differences in gender and the usual victim. They're the ones that are not in line with the rules related to the nature of male and female. They're the ones that suffer violence from, on a male level is usually physical, but female is physical and sexual. What also draws our attention is the role of women as guardians, as it were, or promoters, if you like, of these gender roles. In the case of intergender violence, particularly related to what is physical, the younger girls act as police for other girls, reinforcing these gender rules, which of course benefit the male. Those who work in schools and with young people, which really, they were less surprised than I was, because it's the younger boys or the younger students, if you like, that experiment greater violence, particularly those who are between the ages of 12 and 14. The level of violence that they submit to isn't remarkable, and in many cases, it's manifested through WhatsApp group, different to social media. They are outside the control of adults or the vision of other people. In other words, the creativity that they have is quite impressive, really, from a negative point of view. Stickers are made, etc. And of course, artificial intelligence is there. With regard to younger people, their social world is reduced to their life at school, right? So, but when they become older, they have other friends, other circles of friends outside of school, other sports, which gets them away from violence. But the younger, as I say, apart from their family, this is their whole world. In other words, what goes on at school. And they are looking for to find their identity, I say, and they go for those who are popular, right? In other words, they are on the side of the perpetrator and not the victim. But when they get older, this changes, obviously. There are certain, this is also the characteristics of adolescence. Their social circle is the school. They're beginning to use technology. They're beginning to have their first sexual relationships, and they are searching for their identity. With regard to the relationship between online and offline violence, there are two schools of thought here. Online and offline violence, some people think is the same, but expressed through different channels. One is a continuation of the other, while there's another school of thought that said violence online has its own characteristics or features. And the main question is if there exists something in the digital world that favors greater violence. And the response is positive. It's yes, there's some characteristics that are shared, trying to harm the psychological impact, persistence, etc. But there are some features online that favor this violence. A teacher that participated in the focus group, which gave us a clear example of this, saying that there's something in what's digital that fosters this type of behavior. When you're in a cafe and somebody insults you, well, you just might answer them, you might send them to hell, and that's it. But in the digital world, there's 8, for instance, you can be arguing for 8 hours with a Nazi from another region. And we see this clearly amongst the young people. There's some features in the digital world that favor this. In other words, the submittal of the victim, the fact that one is anonymous there, and the outreach that they have there, it increased humiliation of the victim because it goes beyond its social circle and there's no way out. We see this often, that before they could go home and forget about it all, but now they're not able to break away from this. There's no way of escaping, as I say. With regard to support, the results are very similar to those of Portugal. They take this on board through their friends as well, and with the families, the adult, particularly the mothers, they mention them, but they don't want to upset their parents. They don't want to give them reason for concern, in other words, a reason to worry. In the case of the teachers, they are the last resource that the young people talk to. Just maybe to teachers that are close to them, otherwise they don't approach them. But here in Spain, there's NGOs, there's a lot of knowledge with regard to NGOs or external entities that can help them, because there's a lot of good work carried out by the police with this master plan that they have. They go to the schools and talk to the young people. And they do have conversations in the schools that puts them in contact with different foundations or NGOs that they can recur to. The schools, well, as I say, the teachers are the last resource. They're the last ones that the young people would approach, because they minimize the subject. And also you have to think about something that happens outside the school, and the violence or harassment online doesn't take place in any particular space. Everybody can everybody can say at least that this doesn't take place in the family, in the school, etc., etc. The teachers know the protocols, but they think that it's too much red tape, too much bureaucracy. It's not really to take action, but to defend their reputation. And as I say, when you draw up a protocol and you see that you know how to do it, so as I say, they continue to do them. And in other words, there's a lack of resources here with regard to the protocols, etc. The police, the parents are missing, I should say. The police are kind of taking over from there. The parents are completely missing, and their digital knowledge is very limited. In the case of the police, they do say that the parents do not come to these talks. There's talks for what? Organized for 200 people, and 3 people turn up, 3 parents. And finally, we have collected some of the improvement proposals from the 3 different areas. And the first one would be to include young people in the development of workshops, talks, personal interviews with people, with similar people, and to include them in the creative process behind these workshops that you want to set up. The teachers should get more training. They should be more involved. As I say, the students say that the trainings are very boring. They just go to them because they don't want to go to their own classes. When these are, well, to involve the parents, I should say, from the police and from the adults, we would have to approach the parents in other scenarios and not the schools, because a lot of the parents work and they can't go to these. In the enterprises, there should be training or campaigns which to appeal to the parents, not in the schools, but on television, for example, in their workplaces, etc. Look for synergies with programs that already exist. For instance, in Spain, well, the foundation and the police, a lot of work is done with them. So one has something there. You don't have to work without help, because this has already been created, and something that has come up in the survey as well and came up in the case of Portugal is a change of paradigm. An individual problem that has come to become a social problem affects all of us, and intervention focused on not only the victim but on the perpetrator as well. To get the parents to see when their children are, as I say, perpetrators. When the parents of the perpetrators are included, well, the cases are solved much easier. In many cases, the parents are involved, and when they are involved, a solution is found. And when we have presented the results of the survey, we've tried to do some of this, because a problem that we all have, I believe, is that when these events take place, the people that attend are the same ones. They're always women with a certain level of awareness that take part in gender associations. Young men never come. And the ones that really would benefit from these events. But thanks to the success of the series Adolescents, because you see that the good student has become a perpetrator. Well, the results have been presented in Madrid, Murcia, and Asturias, and we tried to generate a debate on this and relating the results that we have with this series, Adolescents, that has had so much success. And that completes my presentation. Thank you very much.
Bueno, les agradezco a los...
I'm most grateful to the four speakers for their very interesting presentations, because really they have been very, very interesting. I'm not just saying that, they were very interesting. We have very little time, but we do have some time for questions. If anybody would like to ask a question, just like before, we'll get the questions first, and then the people at the table will then respond to them. But let's have the questions first, okay? With the microphone, please, to facilitate translation. More than a question, this is just to affirm from my experience as a teacher from secondary school who's retired a year ago. I'd like to talk about the research that has been carried out here in Spain. When I hear about the school, the family, etc., the school, I know that schools are very limited in order to be able to confront these problems. Even though education is of the essence, we have to think about other agents apart from the school. And there's a trend now in the schools, as we know, at least in Madrid, we've gone from everything digital. Now we don't want anything digital. So you don't even have that web, and like they're using their mobile phones in class, and you can pick up something from that. But as I say, training has to be for those from 12 to 14 years of age. They're the most vulnerable as victims or as perpetrators. And they are defenseless. We have to work with the victims as well. We have to protect the victim. We have to support the victim. But the victim also has to empower itself, because many times the girl, particularly amongst girls, well, the girl that has suffered, I'm not talking now about harassment, but she'll continue to be a victim for the rest of her life, because this suffering that she has gone through will go with her till the rest of her life. And then, of course, the perpetrator has to be punished, if you like. We're talking about kids from 12, 13, 14, 15. You've got to work with them as well. so they stop playing the role as a perpetrator, and they see themselves as heroes amongst the rest of the group. There are lots of difficulties. I know you can't ask the teachers to fix everything in this life. So I'm in agreement with what you people were saying. There are families that this reaches, but in the areas that I have worked in, which were difficult areas, it's very difficult to reach the parents, as I say. If no other actions are carried out, apart from what's done at school, it'll always be insufficient. Well, thank you very much, all of you. I'm Caterina from ABD from Barcelona. I'd like to thank you for the different service that you've carried out. And I think they're all in line, really. And I think they're very coherent, in line with reality that we're living through. I would just like to ask, add another aspect. When Alejandro talked about the absence of legislation in Catalonia since 2020, we have the full comprehensible law with regard to the rights of women in the light of chauvinism. And in the areas where the violence takes place and the type of violence that it is, there are resources, obligatory sources facilitated by the government to fight against gender violence. And about a week or so ago, there's a new service for specialized in digital harassment. Not only are we talking about the traditional educators, etc., we have a special group of women with terrific technological training, different to us, because we don't know how to find out where the message has come from and who we should be directing ourselves to. But now we have set up a new group of technologists, women, who can facilitate us here. And I think the social indicators were taken into consideration, social classes, etc. And there are areas where things happen and others that don't. There are secondary schools, as I say, that have very interesting workshops, and they have a more progressive view, and the parents are more open to all of this. But we know that there are other areas, more underprivileged areas, where there isn't a workshop, and when a workshop is created, there is resistance to it. As we heard in Portugal, there are a group of parents that don't want the subject of citizenship imparted in their schools. So these type of tensions, these type of resistance, together with economic indicators and social classes, I think there's some stigma with regard to the fact that the lower classes are less interested in all of this, and I don't think that's real. And to correct this stigma, I think would be important. Thank you. Microphone, please. I would like to talk about the perpetrator in line with everything that has been said this morning. We always see the bad guy, the person that behaves badly, that's aggressive, and it's typical behavior. And I did some work with the teacher with regard to pre-adolescence and how the effect it has on sexualization, etc. And the main thing that she said was that the person, you could never say that the person who has hit out is suffering from mental health. He's a psychopath. No, but that is not the case, as we know. There's nothing that differs him from others. They're not problematic people. So, as I say, we have seen now in society that the good guys in the what we call the infill current at the moment can also carry out these type of actions. And of course, and they can even get to a stage where they commit murder. So we need prevention above all. And this focal point shouldn't be on the victim, but on the perpetrator. When women don't feel safe on the street, I have read, if you carry an umbrella, they won't hit you. If you have wearing a ponytail, your hair can be pulled, right? But as I say, we have to make sure that they know that they can't go behind people on the street. Prevention is very important for the perpetrators and for the victims, but particularly for the perpetrators. And I think it's very important, this aggressive behavior point of view with regard to the perpetrators. Anybody else like to make a comment or ask a question? If not, I'll give the floor to the table, to those around the table to see if they would like to answer. I'd just like to answer to two items. What the teacher said, that yes, one would have to intervene at the age of 12 to 14 years of age, but we realize that it should be before in primary school. In other words, at the first, and when we want to intervene in the first and second year of secondary school, it's too late. As the other person mentioned, legislation in Spain, and what the police told us in general, they feel that it's quite advanced. What has been acknowledged now are the different crimes in the cyber world. And they said that the crimes are always ahead of legislation because there has to be a crime to be able to set up the legislation for it. And then, of course, the master plan, as we know, that exists amongst the police. And it's not just any policeman off the road, off the street, that will be holding these positions. But as I say, the plan is very advanced. When we talk about the social economic level, in the case of Spain and Madrid, at least what we did, we tried to have a diversity of different districts, the ones that we felt that there could be different social economic levels. In Murcia and Asturias, I believe they did the same. In Asturias, Avilés was one of the areas, which is a mining community. And there were more urban and less urban areas or districts that we took into consideration. In our case, with all the limitations that we have, and there's only 5 groups, so you can't reach too many generalizations. I don't think there was a social economic component in areas where we thought they would be better, that would be more label-headed people. Well, they were more radical, I have to say, with regard to what they put forward. And in areas when we thought they'd be worse, well, they were better. And in line with regard to the perpetrator, there's a part which is social, and it has to do with all of us as a search for the other, who we see as a common enemy. In the case of those between 12 and 14, that their first time in secondary school now, and that what's most harmful is not the bad guy or the good guy that goes off the rails, than the actual group behavior, where you situate yourself in a group against another group, and you don't think it's going to have such serious consequences. Maybe you can do it involving an external group of within the community or something. I don't know exactly how we could do it. But we see that in this group of 12 to 14.
We didn't do the analysis crossing even the region. So we did it without crossing any particular issues, although the way we reached schools was doing a protocol of cooperation with specific schools. And we have schools from Abordaron, which is far away in Portugal, near Spain, but in a very rural area. And then we have schools from Rio de Moro. So we have very different school types, schools with 1,000 students and schools with 3,000 students, 3,000 students, yeah. So very different, but we did not do the analysis. Yeah. So let me just say that for us, we always look at Spain in terms of legislation on combating violence against women and girls. For us, it's very important, your legislation, actually, because we think it's far away from ours in terms of approach, in terms of support, in terms of funding, everything, I would say. So yeah, we look at your law. So we think it is perfect, yeah, but we know that you don't think as us, as external actors. And I will say that for us, it's quite bad that we turn independent in the 17th century, I think. So, because if we were now a part of Spain, I think we would be much more much more developed in terms of human rights as Portugal is now.
Spain, I go to
If I may, just a short remark on the comment about the perpetrators. As you may see in the presentation, the negative impacts of gender-based cyber violence are very similar for victims and perpetrators. So the situation, the picture is not probably a simple one with bad guys and good guys, in meaning that violence could be based on pre-existing mental health issues or even be some kind of response to experienced violence. So I think in your presentation, we also saw this suggestion that interventions should be also focused on perpetrators, not only victims. I think we suggested as a policy recommendation that some kind of workshops and interventions should be organized in mixed groups to get boys and girls together, and attention should be paid also on post-incident interventions in work with perpetrators in order not to repeat the violence.
En línea con lo que está comentando, me parece que las...
In line with what you were saying, I think that the interventions have to do with the role of the schools and a limitation in the actual research. I think we'll have to look for other scenarios, other ways of doing things, maybe with those who guide the children, because a class full of children probably is not the best scenario, because you have the victims with the perpetrators. So it's very difficult that they are going to talk. So the workshops, the talks take place in a scenario like that is not so good. But the police tell us that after the talks, well, people come and talk to them on a private level, but we'd have to think about that as well.
Si nadie más.
If maybe just before we end, I think I just would like to mention something about the citizenry hub, because, but it should be very brief because I don't know what Jessica is, because we are already, we should have already finished by now. So please take just a few minutes to mention this if you like.
Hola a todos.
Okay, thank you. I would like to thank you for taking into account us to be present here at this event. It is for us a pleasure to see how these projects are materialized, projects that are part of the European Commission program here. Daphne, that has a number of aids for different themes and projects, like the Daphne line that was commented on at the beginning of the presentation. And we are at the Ministry of Culture. We are the point of coordinator, the coordinator for this program in Spain, and we are in contact with the autonomous regions through the Directorate of Cultural Rights. We are a small group, but our mission is to provide you consultancy if you want to, for any organization or entity that would like to be part of these projects. Through the different calls that we launch on a yearly basis, we can do the follow up with you for free. We organize workshops, seminars, and we also inform about the different projects that are presented. This is a project that is addressed to different civil society organizations, public universities, and different entities. And the only requirement is to be set at the different 27 countries of the European Union, or even countries that have signed a number of contracts with us. We have a budget of 5,500 million euros. For the next edition, we will have other programs that of the European Commission that will increase also their budget, their financing. For us, there's also an increase of funding, and we will go about 3 million euros, we think. So just to summarize, you can find all the information at the Punto Europeo de Ciudadanía, the citizenry European point. If you can write to us at the address that you can see on screen, or you can even call us by phone. The CERV program has a number of convocations, a number of calls, different lines of funding, like the Daphne line that focuses on preventing and combating gender-based violence, and also the promotion of fundamental rights of citizens. We have another line to fight and combat and prevent discrimination, to support the rights of children, and all the rights related to citizens' participation, and other lines that we have, you can have information about on our website. I would like to thank you for allowing us to have a say here, and we'll be very happy to welcome you at our office at the European Citizenry Point. Thank you. Okay, I would like to put an end to this event, and I would like to thank the different speakers with the presentations that have been very interesting. I would like to thank the attendees who hope have learned a lot. And we have a small brunch here or lunch that we can enjoy. We can have and do a little bit of networking while having a drink and something to eat and a bite. Thank you.